Welcome, deep divers, to an exploration that really resonates with so many of us, often in those quiet, unspoken corners of our lives. Today, we're taking a truly profound deep dive into something called hidden roles within narcissistic family systems. This isn't just, an academic discussion. It's about peeling back the layers to understand how these deeply ingrained roles are formed, the far-reaching impact they have, and, most crucially, how we can begin that truly life-altering journey of breaking free and reclaiming our authentic identity. For countless individuals, simply becoming aware of these patterns, just seeing them for what they are, is the very first transformative step out of years, sometimes decades of unconscious living, operating on scripts that were never truly ours.
And that awareness, you're right, that moment of clarity, it's absolutely foundational. Because when narcissism infiltrates a family, particularly when it's a parent who is the narcissistic individual, the entire family structure becomes inherently fundamentally dysfunctional. It's just not a system built on genuine love or mutual respect or the kind of emotional safety that really fosters healthy growth. Instead, it operates on a stark foundation of control, of manipulation, sometimes subtle, sometimes not, the relentless maintenance of a carefully constructed public image, and, well, pervasive emotional invalidation. It's tragic, really. What's truly critical to grasp here is that within this toxic structure, each child, without conscious choice, without even awareness initially, adopts a specific, often unspoken role, becomes their fundamental means of emotional survival. It just highlights how systemic these roles truly are. They compel children to fit into a pre-assigned narrative, often at immense personal cost to their true self. The family is essentially a stage, and each child is kind of forced into a predetermined part, whether they realize it or not.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because it sounds like we're talking about more than just like personality quirks or something. So
Okay.
if these roles are so pervasive, so deeply woven into the fabric of a family, what exactly are these hidden roles and how do they really show up in the everyday lives of individuals? Because it's clear from what you're saying, these aren't choices we make, like picking a favorite flavor of ice cream. These are identities imposed upon us, almost like a costume handed out by the system itself.
Precisely. You've hit on a crucial point there. They are archetypes, yes, but they're deeply ingrained patterns that emerge as unconscious coping mechanisms. They are automatic protective behaviors that a child's mind adopts without even realizing it, simply to survive a difficult, often emotionally barren environment. We can generally identify 5 primary roles, each serving a unique, albeit often painful, purpose within the narcissistic family's chaotic ecosystem. Understanding them, well, it's like finally seeing the invisible threads that have been pulling you for years. First, we have the golden child. This is the child who is meticulously idealized, often showered with excessive praise, and presented as a direct, shining extension of the narcissistic parent themselves. They are consistently rewarded for their unwavering loyalty, for their perceived successes, be it academics, sports, social life, whatever, and most importantly, for their ability to uphold the narcissist's carefully curated public image. They become the family's trophy, the living proof of the narcissist's good parenting or successful lineage.
Wow, the trophy child.
Exactly. But what's particularly insidious here is the immense pressure that lies just beneath all that praise, all that adulation. This child isn't actually loved for their inherent self, for who they truly are, their quirks, their genuine feelings, their own unique desires. No, instead, their value is entirely contingent upon what they do, how flawlessly they perform, or how perfectly they appear to the outside world. Imagine being a young person constantly walking on eggshells, knowing deep down that your worth is conditional, perpetually striving for some impossible standard set by someone else.
That sounds exhausting and incredibly lonely in a strange way.
It is. They might suppress any negative emotions or thoughts, anything that could possibly displease the parent, which leads to profound internal conflict. It's the constant burden of maintaining an impossible facade where their genuine feelings and needs become entirely secondary to the parent's approval and upholding that external illusion. The really profound insight here, I think, is that this love they receive, it's not love at all, it's a mirror. The child becomes a living reflection of the narcissist's desires and needs, essentially losing their own reflection, their true self in the process. The gilded cage isn't just about external pressure. It's about the gradual erasure of the self. It makes authentic connection almost impossible later on because often there's no authentic self left to connect from.
A gilded cage that really captures it. All that shine on the outside, but so much hidden pressure and, like you said, that profound loss of self on the inside. It makes me wonder about the other end of that spectrum then.
You're right to connect those dots. It's often a polarized system. If the golden child carries the weight of perfection, the other end of that spectrum, and equally devastating in its own way, is the role we call the scapegoat. This child tragically becomes the emotional dumping ground for all the family's dysfunction, all the unacknowledged problems. They are reflexively blamed for virtually everything that goes wrong within the family system, regardless of any actual fault. It's almost automatic.
So everything's their fault, basically.
Pretty much. They are often cast into the role of the truth teller, or the black sheep, or the rebel, often simply because they might unconsciously or consciously reflect back, or even challenge, the inherent dysfunction they see. Imagine a child constantly hearing, "It's your fault we're fighting," or "You always ruin everything," even when they're just innocent bystanders, or maybe even the only ones seeing things clearly. While this role is incredibly painful, characterized by constant criticism, unfair accusations, often overt ostracization, it paradoxically positions the scapegoat to be the very first, and often the most clear-eyed, to truly recognize the family's deep-seated dysfunction.
That's fascinating. So the pain actually leads to clarity.
It can. Their very rebellion, even though it's typically met with harsh punishment, gaslighting, further invalidation, it can become a vital, courageous step towards ultimately breaking the entire cycle. They're often the first ones to call out the emperor's new clothes, so to speak. This often requires an immense amount of self-awareness and sheer courage, just to stand in their truth, despite the constant invalidation and that feeling of being the perpetual outsider. The critical insight is that the scapegoat's rebellion isn't just defiance for defiance sake. It's often an intuitive drive for truth and authenticity in a system built on lies. And that, ironically, often pushes them towards healing sooner, albeit through a really painful crucible.
It's like they're the canary in the coal mine for the family's toxic atmosphere, but instead of being listened to, they get blamed for pointing out the bad air.
Who was that? Yeah.
Yeah, a truly difficult path. But it sounds like one that holds real potential for genuine freedom down the line.
Precisely. And then, moving on, there's the lost child. This role is characterized by an almost profound quietness, deep emotional neglect, and a feeling of perpetual invisibility within the family dynamic. They learn very early on to retreat inward, to meticulously avoid any form of conflict or drawing attention to themselves, and they learn to cope with their feelings entirely in isolation. They become adept at self-soothing, sure, but also at profound emotional suppression.
Just trying to stay off the radar.
Exactly. Stay off the radar. The nuance here lies in the deep and pervasive loneliness carried by the lost child. It's a direct consequence of being consistently overlooked, having their needs minimized or just outright ignored. Their primary survival mechanism becomes reducing their own presence, making themselves as small, unobtrusive, and unnamed as possible, effectively just disappearing into the background. This can, unfortunately, lead to profound issues with self-worth later on, a pervasive feeling of not mattering, and a significant struggle with genuine connection and intimacy. Consider the silent, unacknowledged struggles as someone who learned really early that their voice and their needs simply wouldn't be heard or met, so they just stopped trying to express them, and they carry that silence into all their future interactions.
That's heartbreaking. To feel so unseen, so unheard in your own home right from the start. The silent struggles must be immense.
They truly are. The unique insight here is that their invisibility, while incredibly painful, might have afforded them a certain psychological distance from the direct drama and conflict, unlike maybe the scapegoat. But came at the cost of ever learning how to authentically connect with others or advocate for their own needs.
Right. A different kind of cost.
And then we have the mascot. This is often the family entertainer or the clown, the one who uses humor, charm, or distraction as their primary tool to alleviate tension and lighten the often heavy, volatile mood within the dysfunctional family. They're sort of the emotional lightning rod, trying to deflect conflict with a joke or a performance.
Ah, the tension diffuser.
You got it. But one of those striking observations is that this role often comes at the severe expense of their own emotional well-being. They become incredibly adept at suppressing their true feelings, masking them behind a facade of relentless joviality and wit, all in an effort to divert attention away from the underlying dysfunction or, impending explosion. This constant performance of emotional labor, always being on, always trying to make others feel better or diffuse a volatile situation, takes an immense internal toll. It often leads to a deep, unacknowledged sadness or anxiety simmering beneath the surface. Think of the internal pressure. To always be the life of the party, to diffuse explosive situations with a perfectly timed joke, constantly masking their own underlying fear, anxiety, or profound pain.
Wow. Yeah, that pressure sounds intense.
And the painful insight here is that their humor, while it appears adaptive on the surface, becomes a profound barrier to vulnerability and genuine connection. They've learned that their true emotions are unwelcome, maybe even dangerous in that family system.
So they're basically sacrificing their own emotional needs and authenticity just to manage everyone else's discomfort and maintain this fragile kind of peace. That's a heavy burden to carry, always being the performer.
Exactly. And finally, the fifth role we often see is the caretaker or enabler. This role is often taken on by the other parent, the spouse of the narcissist, or sometimes an older sibling. Their primary function is to sacrifice their own needs and desires in a relentless effort to maintain peace. And crucially, to cover up the narcissist's problematic and often abusive behavior. Their goal is to uphold the illusion of family harmony and functionality, no matter the personal cost.
Keeping up appearances.
Exactly. And a compelling aspect here is how codependent patterns typically develop within this role. This often means they derive their sense of self-worth from being needed, constantly anticipating others' needs, feeling responsible for others' emotions or behaviors, even when it's absolutely not their place. They essentially become indispensable to the narcissist, enabling the dysfunction to continue by minimizing any consequences for the narcissist's actions and by absorbing immense emotional burdens themselves. Their very identity often becomes deeply intertwined with maintaining these external appearances and keeping the family system intact, even if it's based on a lie and requires their own self-negation. Envision the constant tightrope walk, the exhausting effort to appease everyone and prevent any kind of conflict, all while their own needs, their dreams, their sense of self just slowly wither away, utterly neglected.
That sounds like a recipe for burnout and resentment.
Absolutely. And the core insight here is that their care, as it appears, is not truly about selfless love. It's often about control and survival within a chaotic system, tragically at the expense of their own well-being and their genuine identity. They lose themselves in the process of helping.
So, to bring this all together, what you're saying is that these aren't roles chosen by these children or individuals, not conscious decisions at all, but rather they're highly adaptive, often really ingenious survival mechanisms. They're unconsciously imposed by a deeply dysfunctional system that almost inherently pits family members against each other or forces them into these rigid molds, all to serve the narcissist's insatiable needs for control, admiration, or whatever it is. It sounds like a tragic play with an unwitting cast.
Precisely. Forced adaptations, not conscious choices. And the impact, as you can probably imagine, is profound and very far-reaching. It extends well beyond childhood.
That's a crucial point, because these childhood coping strategies, they don't just magically disappear when we hit 18 or 21. They often persist, casting these long shadows and creating really significant challenges in our adult lives, in our relationships, in our careers. So what does this all mean for us years later as adults? Especially for those who might be recognizing these patterns for the very first time right now.
You're absolutely right. It's a vital connection to make. The coping mechanisms developed in childhood, while necessary for survival then, become deeply ingrained patterns that can significantly hinder healthy functioning, genuine connection, and personal fulfillment in adulthood. Let's maybe look at how each of these roles typically manifests later in life and the specific struggles they often entail. For the golden child, that intense idealization and conditional love in childhood, it often translates into adulthood as grappling with intense perfectionism, an overwhelming fear of failure. Their sense of identity becomes incredibly fragile, deeply tied to external validation. They're constantly seeking approval from others because their past value is always conditional on success and appearance.
Always chasing that next gold star.
Exactly. They might struggle to make decisions without external input, fear taking risks, or feel utterly lost if they can't achieve perceived perfection in every single aspect of their lives. They may also find themselves repeating similar dynamics, constantly seeking out partners or employers who will idealize them, only to feel empty when that external validation inevitably proves insufficient, because it's not real love. Then the scapegoat. Having been the recipient of blame, projection, constant validation, they frequently battle deep-seated issues with self-worth. They often carry chronic trust issues, making it incredibly difficult to form close, secure relationships because they unconsciously anticipate betrayal or being blamed again.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Always. They have a propensity to feel perpetually misunderstood or marginalized, a direct echo of their childhood experience, even in environments where they are actually accepted and valued. They might unconsciously push people away, constantly test loyalty, or misinterpret genuine care as manipulation because their early experiences taught them that love came with a hidden cost or was always conditional on being the family's punching bag. This can lead to a cycle of self-sabotage in otherwise healthy relationships. The lost child, who learned to be invisible and minimize their presence, Well, they may develop a powerful tendency to avoid relationships altogether in adulthood, or they struggle profoundly with intimacy even when they do engage. They often experience deep, pervasive feelings of loneliness or invisibility, even when they are physically present within social settings. They just never learned how to truly connect, assert their own needs, or express their true self.
Still feeling invisible even in a crowd.
Precisely. They might struggle to initiate conversations, feel uncomfortable being the center of attention, or actively retreat in situations that require emotional vulnerability. They might find themselves in superficial relationships, or simply drifting through life, feeling perpetually unseen and unheard. The caretaker, or enabler, having spent their youth maintaining that false peace and covering for the narcissist, commonly exhibits deep-seated codependent behaviors in adulthood. They find it incredibly difficult to set healthy boundaries. They often prioritize everyone else's needs above their own and struggle immensely to break free from unhealthy relational patterns that mirror their original family dynamic.
Repeating the pattern.
Often, yes. They might attract partners or friends who are similarly demanding, manipulative, or emotionally needy, perpetuating that cycle of self-sacrifice, resentment, and eventual burnout. Their identity becomes so intertwined with being needed that they may feel lost or worthless when not actively tending to others. And finally, the mascot, the one who used humor and charm to deflect and cope. They tend to hide deeper pain and vulnerability behind a constant facade of humor or superficial joviality. They struggle profoundly to express or process genuine emotions, often deflecting serious conversations with a joke, because they learned that vulnerability was unsafe. Their role was to make others comfortable, not to be truly seen themselves.
Always the entertainer, never showing the cracks.
Exactly. This can lead to a pervasive sense of emotional isolation even amongst their closest friends, as no one truly sees their authentic struggles. They might use humor to avoid confronting their own pain, or to escape difficult situations, never truly allowing themselves to sit with uncomfortable emotions and process them.
It's truly eye-opening how these roles become so deeply embedded and just continue to shape our lives in so many ways. But here's what becomes incredibly clear from all this, and what I think offers immense hope. While these roles were imposed, they don't have to define you. They really don't. The possibility of reclaiming your authentic self, of healing, it isn't just some distant hope, it's truly your right. This isn't about being stuck in the past. It's about actively carving a new, liberating path forward.
That's such a statement of profound liberation, and it's a necessary truth to internalize. Absolutely.
So if we acknowledge these deep-seated patterns and understand their origins and their ongoing impact, the crucial question becomes, how do we begin the remedy process? How do we start healing? Because this sounds like a journey, definitely not a quick fix or a simple step, and it certainly begins with some very conscious, deliberate internal steps, doesn't it?
You're absolutely right. It is a journey. Think marathon, not sprint. And the initial steps are fundamentally internal and honestly require immense courage. The very first and arguably the most crucial step is awareness. This is the absolute starting point, no question. It involves consciously recognizing the specific role or roles you played within your family system, and then critically validating your past experiences, understanding why you did what you did. This isn't about blame, it's about understanding the system dynamics. You might ask yourself, what was my primary function in the family? How did I try to stay safe or get my needs met, even indirectly?
Seeing the pattern clearly for the first time.
Exactly. And what's truly transformative here is that this awareness helps you understand that your past coping mechanisms, the very behaviors that now cause you pain or struggle, like maybe perfectionism or people-pleasing or avoidance, were once necessary. They were even ingenious survival tools. They were developed to navigate an impossible situation, a chaotic, unpredictable environment. With this profound understanding, you can begin to see that these tools no longer serve your present well-being. They served a purpose then, but now they can and must be consciously released. This is often that moment of clarity, truly seeing the puzzle pieces of your past fall into place, realizing you were reacting to a dysfunctional system, and that you are not inherently flawed. You adapted brilliantly to survive. It's the moment you stop blaming yourself for reactions that were completely logical given an illogical environment.
So it's like acknowledging the sheer ingenuity of your past self, recognizing the brilliance of those survival strategies, but then realizing those old strategies are actually holding you back now from truly living. That's a powerful reframing.
Exactly, and a very powerful reframing. And once that awareness dawns, and the true picture of your past begins to clarify, the next essential, albeit often challenging step is grieving.
Yeah.
This involves allowing yourself to truly grieve the childhood you were denied, the emotional safety you never received, the unconditional love that was absent. or just the simple normalcy that you longed for. It means giving yourself full permission to feel the entire spectrum of emotions that may arise. Profound anger, deep sadness, confusion, resentment, maybe even a sense of betrayal.
Letting yourself feel it all, finally.
Yes. And one of the most critical insights here is to understand that this grief is not a sign of weakness. It is, in fact, a powerful, courageous act of release and self-compassion. It's about acknowledging a profound and very real loss. The loss of what should have been. The loss of innocence. The loss of authentic connection with your parents. It's like mourning a dream or a life that should have been, acknowledging all the pain and hurt that was once swept under the rug and never allowed to surface. It's honoring the hurt so it can finally begin to heal.
That makes so much sense. It's not about wallowing or being stuck in the past, but really honoring what was lost so you can authentically move forward. It's a vital act of self-love, isn't it?
It absolutely is a profound act of self-love. And then, following that internal work, a truly transformative step in reclaiming your autonomy is boundary building. Now, with narcissistic family members, establishing boundaries is almost universally perceived by them as a personal betrayal, an act of disloyalty, a direct attack on their control. They'll likely push back, sometimes hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that doesn't go over well.
Rarely. However, for you, it is an unequivocal, sacred act of self-honor. It is not disloyalty to them, it's loyalty to yourself. The critical insight here is understanding the different forms these boundaries can take. It might mean implementing low contact, carefully limiting interactions, managing topics of conversation. It could involve making the difficult but often necessary choice of no contact, cutting ties entirely for your own peace and sanity. Or it might be emotional distancing, where you remain physically present perhaps, but you no longer allow their emotional manipulation or drama to deeply affect you. You could act emotionally.
Finding what works for you.
Exactly. The critical point is that the choice should be based solely on what brings you peace, protects your well-being, and serves your healing, not on seeking their approval or trying to avoid their inevitable confrontation. This is about drawing a sacred line in the sand, protecting your emotional space as if it were a precious sanctuary, and recognizing that loyalty to your own self, your own healing, must come first, above all external demands or expectations. It's a redefinition of what loyalty truly means in this context.
Drawing that sacred line. That's incredibly powerful imagery and probably one of the most challenging steps for many people. But healing doesn't stop with internal recognition and setting those initial boundaries right. It also delves into deeper self-nurturing and, crucially, finding external support. So what else is vital on this journey of reclaiming yourself?
You're right, the journey expands profoundly from there. It moves into active self-nurturing, which is so important. A profound aspect of healing is reparenting. This is the deliberate, conscious, and compassionate act of giving yourself the love, validation, and emotional safety that you did not receive in childhood. It's essentially about becoming the wise, nurturing parent to your own inner child that you never had.
Becoming your own good parent?
Precisely. And what's truly remarkable here are the concrete, actionable ways this can manifest in your daily life. It looks like consistently engaging in self-care practices that genuinely nourish you, whether that's regular movement, healthy eating, sufficient sleep, or engaging in hobbies that bring you actual joy. It means seeking out and committing to therapy, particularly with a trauma-informed therapist who really understands these specific family dynamics. It also involves self-reflective practices like journaling, where you process your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Or maybe meditation for cultivating mindfulness and presence, allowing you to observe your internal states with compassion instead of criticism. And a powerful, accessible tool is the regular use of affirmations that reinforce core, fundamental truths about your inherent worth. Repeating things to yourself like, I am enough, I am lovable, I am safe now, I am here for myself. This is about actively nurturing your own inner child, providing that missing parental figure, and offering the unconditional acceptance that was absent during your formative years. Imagine literally giving your past self the hug, the reassurance, the validation, and the profound unconditional acceptance that was missing. It's a continuous act of self-love and self-creation.
That's such a beautiful and vital concept, becoming the parent you needed but never had. It sounds like an ongoing, evolving relationship with yourself, really.
Indeed it is. And it's not a journey you have to walk alone, nor should you feel you have to. This brings us to the crucial role of professional and social support. The power of working with a good, trauma-informed therapist cannot be overstated. They are uniquely equipped to help you unpack complex emotions, identify those recurring dysfunctional patterns, like the roles you played, and actively begin to rewire the limiting beliefs that have been ingrained since childhood. They provide a safe, non-judgmental space to process trauma and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
Having that trained guide seems invaluable.
It truly can be. And beyond professional help, the value of support groups cannot be understated. Connecting with others who share similar experiences. It can make you feel truly seen, heard, and understood, perhaps for the very first time. This drastically reduces that profound sense of isolation that often comes with these experiences. And of course, trusted friends play a vital role. They provide essential connection, different perspectives, and unconditional positive regard, helping you see yourself through a healthier, more compassionate lens. What's fascinating here is that this is about actively finding your chosen family, or finding a professional guide who can help you navigate the often labyrinthine and complex emotional landscape that emerges during healing. They provide a vital external mirror, reflecting back your worth, your resilience, your progress, helping you build new, healthy attachment styles.
Finding your people, your true support system. That sounds absolutely transformative, and just a testament to our basic human need for healthy connection.
It is fundamental. And related to that, a significant, often insidious hurdle in this healing process is learning to release guilt. Narcissistic family systems are inherently designed to thrive on instilling profound guilt and a pervasive sense of obligation in their members. You were likely taught, implicitly or explicitly, that you are responsible for their emotions, their happiness, maybe even their dysfunction.
That false responsibility.
Exactly. False responsibility. What's truly a critical mental shift, and perhaps the most liberating insight of all, is to unequivocally state to yourself that guilt is not, and never has been, a reliable compass for truth, nor is it a healthy guide for making choices for yourself. You do not, under any circumstances, owe loyalty to someone who has consistently caused you harm, invalidated your reality, or contributed to your suffering. Instead, your primary unwavering loyalty must be directed inward to your own healing and your own well-being. This is a monumental step in reclaiming your autonomy and your self-worth. It's like shedding a heavy cloak of responsibility that was never truly yours to carry in the first place. Understanding deep down that your freedom, your peace, and your emotional health are infinitely more important than someone else's comfort or their desire to maintain control, it redefines what true loyalty means. It's loyalty to your authentic self and your fundamental right to peace.
That's incredibly empowering. Most importantly, remember this. You didn't cause the dysfunction, but you can absolutely end its hold on you. That's such a powerful, liberating truth. It puts the power squarely back in your hands, giving you the agency to rewrite your own story moving forward.
It truly is the core of empowerment. And as we discuss ending the dysfunction's hold, it's essential to understand the nature of the healing process itself. It's just crucial to acknowledge that healing takes time. It is not a linear progression like climbing a ladder straight up to fixed. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There will be days where you feel incredibly strong, clear, and resilient, like you've turned a monumental corner and everything feels possible. You feel like, I've got this. And then there will be other days where you feel raw, vulnerable, perhaps overwhelmed by emotions that surface unexpectedly or triggered by an old memory or a difficult interaction.
The ups and downs are normal then.
Completely normal. What's truly important to internalize here, and a profound reassurance, is to tell yourself that this fluctuation, these ups and downs, are entirely normal and completely acceptable. They are part of the process. They are not a sign of failure or that you're doing it wrong or going backwards. Progress in healing isn't about achieving perfection or reaching some final destination where all pain magically vanishes forever. That's not realistic. Instead, progress is defined by consistent presence, showing up for yourself with compassion, being aware of your emotions without judgment, and making the daily conscious choice to love yourself, to extend kindness toward yourself, even when it feels difficult, even when it hurts, even when you feel like you're taking 2 steps back. It's like learning to walk again after an injury. Some days your steps are fluid and confident, others they might be wobbly and hesitant. But every single step forward, no matter how small or wobbly, genuinely counts towards your recovery and building strength. Every moment of self-compassion builds that foundation.
That reframes everything, doesn't it? It's not about being perfect or never feeling pain again, but about consistently showing up for yourself with compassion day by day. And that brings us to the ultimate liberation, really. Breaking free from the roles of a narcissistic family is not rebellion in a negative sense. It's a profound act of rebirth. You are allowed to outgrow the box they put you in. You are absolutely allowed to define who you are on your terms, unburdened by their expectations or their narratives. And please know you are not alone in this journey. You are already, simply by being here and listening and engaging with this, on the path to freedom and self-discovery. This deep dive really brings home the profound impact of these hidden family roles, doesn't it? But more importantly, I think, the incredible agency we have to define our own future. You truly are the author of your own story, not merely a character stuck in someone else's unfinished, often messy script.
And that authorship, that act of conscious self-creation, that is the ultimate act of empowerment and healing. It really is. As you move forward from this deep dive today, I really encourage you to actively engage with the concepts we've discussed. Don't just let them sit there. Perhaps take a moment later to meditate on the idea of setting boundaries like they are sacred, like you're building a protective sanctuary around your soul, because you deserve that protection. Or reflect deeply on what it truly means for you to define who you are on your terms, unburdened by past expectations or those imposed roles, allowing your authentic self, whoever that is, to finally emerge. Setting intentional sacred boundaries for your own well-being is not just an act of protection, it's an act of profound self-love, self-creation, and ultimately self-liberation.
A powerful thought to carry with you indeed. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into understanding and, most importantly, into healing. Take care of your heart, honor your healing journey wherever you are on it, and remember, you are the master of your own narrative now. We'll dive up again soon.